You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.
And welcome to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community. As always, I am Ben Wolf, your host. And today we have a very, very special episode. As you know, who've been listening to this, we have a great focus very often on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so I am pleased to be talking with my guest today about what's next for EOS and entrepreneurship in general with the newly named visionary of EOS Worldwide, Mark O'Donnell. And I'll get into introducing him in a second. I want to ask everybody to make sure to follow this show wherever it is that you are listening to this. This particular episode is only audio, not video. So wherever you are listening to this or watching this in general, please follow, leave a review, and that'll make it more accessible to yourself in the future. And with that, I want to get into introducing our guest today, Mark. He is the brand new visionary and head coach at EOS Worldwide, the organization dedicated to educating the world about EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which, for those who are not familiar, is a complete set of simple concepts and practical tools that has helped thousands of entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses. Mark is a certified EOS implementer at Optimized for Growth, for clients in the Philadelphia and Lancaster, Pennsylvania areas. I guess he'll correct me if I'm wrong about that. He was previously the president and partner at Azzur Group, a life science consulting and project management firm. You can find out more about him and EOS at eosworldwide.com. And with that, here is Mark O'Donnell. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. It's my honor, and I know our listeners will be very excited to listen to this, to have you on today. Especially after the recent announcement that you're, stepping into the role as visionary with, already being head coach for a while and everything that you've accomplished. So very, very happy and privileged to learn and hear from you.
Sure.
I'd like to ask, as the initial question to, as we say, like a 2-minute history, like we always talk about our clients with, but if you give us your quick 2-minute history, kind of how you got to be at this moment and sharing the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So my entrepreneurial journey started in 2006. And at the time, I was an engineer for Big Pharma. So I was in Big Pharma prior to taking the entrepreneurial leap. And I started my first company January 2007. My brother and I were sort of plotting in 2006 how we were going to launch. And we grew that company very quickly. It was from the 2 of us to 23 employees, and really just kind of making a mess, right? You never, starting your entrepreneurial business, you don't really know what it's like. It's not like what you learned in business school, right? And when your finance professor says cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, all of a sudden it starts to mean something when it's actually your cash. And, you're growing your company. And so my brother and I grew the company. We then merged with another company in 2010, and we continued that growth path. And me, my brother, and 2 other partners, we formed the Azzur Group and started growing that company and growing it very quickly. We started spinning off a both horizontally and vertically integrated organization where we wanted to serve pharma and biotech from what we called discovery to delivery, from the lab bench to delivery to the patient. And 2013, we were on the verge of completing another merger with a company in California. And we were having lunch at the Pentagon with a 3-star general. And that event was facilitated by Jonathan Smith, who is a certified EOS implementer and a longtime member of the EOS community.
Was my EOS implementer for 3 years when I was in the company, and certainly a mentor of mine now as well. Made the connection between us.
Yeah. And so he was our implementer. He introduced us to EOS. We completed our merger, and then we began our EOS journey. And, to be honest, it was a little bit of a rocky one because we finished the merger. We had all partners. And so trying to find the right people in the right seats when you can't fire anyone is a really interesting situation. So Jonathan was implementing for our holding company, and I was implementing for our portfolio companies. And what I found was I was having a lot more fun teaching EOS, teaching the tools, helping the entrepreneurs within our business, portfolio companies that we owned, have all these aha moments and break through the ceiling and start becoming and budding into successful entrepreneurs. So in August 2014, I went to boot camp, and when I came into the community, I wasn't sure, and I joke about this to the community, is that I wasn't sure either I joined a cult or I was surrounded by people who shared my core values for the very first time in my life. I wasn't sure which.
And just
because,
for everybody out there, boot camp, for people who don't know, is the training program for professional EOS implementers. So just to give people that background, since you made the reference.
That's right. Thank you for that. Some insider language. And yeah, so I went to boot camp August 14. It was one of Gino's very last ones that he taught. You know, so cult or nirvana, I wasn't sure which. And I just started implementing. Could both be true. It could be, yeah. So I started implementing for not only the companies that I owned, but for other companies I didn't. And I just found that I was just really, really passionate about facilitation and coaching and teaching the tools of EOS, that in 2015, I made the decision to exit the day-to-day of the companies that I owned. And so a lot of that was using the tools that Jonathan taught us, the tools of EOS, getting us operating well enough for that to be true, not without its ups and downs to that. So 2015, I exit the day-to-day. I become a full-time EOS implementer and just started working with as many clients as I possibly could. And then 2018, I realized that I couldn't really move the needle any longer as a board member at Azzur Group. And so we decided to sell. And so I sold to a group of investors, private equity group of investors that include outside capital and the partners in the business. And so I exited that company in 2018. I was a EOS coach at the time, and then became head coach. And at the beginning of COVID, what I started to realize is that a day that was filled with interactions with the EOS Worldwide leadership team and doing Lead Now events for end users in our community, then I had full day session days. I started to realize personally, I was doing the Delegate and Elevate tool for myself, and realized that a session day was less exciting than helping a lot of different people all at one time in a very a different type of day, and interacting with different types of people. So I made the decision to put my name in the hat for visionary at EOS Worldwide. And they had over 2,500 applicants. They interviewed over 300. They did, and got down to the.
I can't believe I would have thought it would have started off with such a much smaller starting point. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, EOS is interesting because we have 10,000 companies, just shy of 10,000 companies running on EOS right now with a professional or certified implementer. Then we have over 100,000 companies implementing EOS with different varying degrees of the tools that they read in the book, self-implementing. They have a base camp membership where they have the tools accessible to them, where they're using the tools themselves and implementing themselves, or working with other people who are not initiated into the community. And so I think when the announcement was made that they're looking for the next generation visionary, there was a lot of interest in that. You're talking to over 100,000 people when you make that announcement. So That's how we kind of got down to that. So
Wow.
somehow, some way, made the final cut, and a lot of it was really just finding the right fit for Kelly Knight. And we talk about the visionary and the integrator and finding the right puzzle piece. Usually it's the visionary looking for the integrator as their ideal fit and puzzle piece. But because Kelly was in place, she's a fantastic integrator. And as Mike Payton, the former visionary, left, it was about her finding her puzzle piece.
Interesting. Yeah, that is quite unusual. And you had her on the show a couple of months ago also.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And she's just a world-class integrator. If my clients would have integrators like her, while they all grew over 20% on average every year, they would grow much faster, and the visionaries would have a lot more fun if they had an integrator like her.
Wow, that's awesome. Right, and and I want to get into some of that aspect of the future of EOS, and and what we can expect with your leadership and just in general with EOS in the future. But first, I want to get into I think maybe something that's even more immediately relevant, kind of inspired by some of our previous conversations, which is relating more directly to people's businesses, and that's something, because you work with so many EOS implementers that work with so many companies of their own. You work with so many organizations. You've seen a lot of companies who are successful post-COVID, post-lockdown. Obviously there are those who, no matter how amazing they are, their industry became illegal or unsafe for some reason. So there's just nothing you could do. But you saw many, many successful organizations, or potentially successful organizations, some who could have been but weren't, maybe could have adapted, could have been successful but weren't. What do you see as the main difference post-COVID for these successful companies? What made the successful companies more successful, and maybe the less successful companies who weren't made illegal, but they still became less successful and still failed post-COVID? What have you seen the differences are?
It's really about the discipline and focus of execution and solving issues at the root as they arise. So the ability to IDS, to identify, discuss, and solve the issues at the root, is really the differentiator between companies that had their best quarters ever. We've had over 30% of an EOS run company has had their absolute best revenue and profit quarters in their entire histories in the middle of COVID. And a very small percentage, around 10%, were completely shut down. Restaurants or different types of dental offices, for example. So there's a very small percentage that they lost 90% of their revenue, and that happened. But by and large, it was flat to the best ever. And so the main difference there is a few things happened. As Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out, it reveals those swimming naked. And so an EOS run business has already been working on what happens when the tide goes out. They've already been crystal clear on their vision. They're crystal clear on their core focus, what they do, what they're striving to be best in the world at. And so they have this essentialist view of their vision, where they're going and how they're going to get there. They're really, really focused in on that people component, having people who share their culture and who are the right fit for the seats, right? They want, and have the capacity to do the role. So what happened during COVID, and as people made these shifts to virtual, I mean, if you think about that, when in any team sport or any group of people, if you're surrounded by people who share your culture, what happens when things go wrong, right? They're cheering each other on. They're not blaming one another. They lock arms and they go to work, right? So if you have a culture that's not built with intention and things get hard, people run, right? They start blaming one another, and they attempt to leave and run and hide, whatever it is. They're just not a culture fit because they don't feel like they have any obligation to their organization or their team.
Thanks.
Then worse yet, people who don't want and have the capacity to do their job, they were able to hide in a lot of ways in person, right? So they would come to work, they would spend all their time at the water cooler or going from cube to cube or office to office, and you never quite knew what they were getting done or not getting done. Going virtual put a spotlight on that, and so a spotlight on your productivity came out very quickly. And so the organizations who didn't do really well were the ones who were not solving their people issues prior to COVID, right? I trained martial arts for a lot of years, and one of the things that we would say is that under pressure, we sink to the lowest level of our training and preparation.
Right.
Or, as Mike Tyson, I think it was actually his trainer who says it, people misquote it to him, which was everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Right.
Because what happens, your brain, you go into limbic mode, your IQ drops by a marked number, and so you're really just behaving in this automatic way. And so companies who didn't have the training, the preparation for execution, they got punched in the mouth and had no idea what to do.
Right.
An EOS run business has been training to get punched in the mouth. So they got hit in the mouth, they sunk to their lowest level of training and preparation. They're already prepared. They know how to solve everything at the root. They got all the right people in the right seats if they're doing it right. They're managing the business with their data. They're solving issues at the root so they don't go away. All their processes are documented. They're being followed by everyone in the business, and they're executing on a quarterly and weekly basis to make sure they're on track. Now, one thing that did happen is the meeting pulse. So normally an EOS run business has quarterly rocks, 90-day rocks. They have weekly meetings with their team, checking in on their scorecard, making sure their rocks are on track, their people are happy, and they're solving their issues.
Right.
That pulse had to get tightened. And so what we taught our clients is that, hey, this is a total exception, not rule. You need to be having daily meetings. I met once a month with a lot of my clients, setting monthly goals and monthly rocks instead of 90-day rocks. And so the pulse just got shorter, and the intensity of execution went up. But there's a mistake to think that you can keep on that sprint level intensity for a very long time. That's one of the reasons why we don't teach daily huddles, is that most organizations, while it's really effective for some, for most regular entrepreneurial organizations, that level of intensity is not sustainable, and so you give it up. So, but during COVID, we had to tighten everything up, tighten the meeting pulse up, but just really continue executing the same way as we always have, because the tide went out, and any impurities in your business came up to the surface almost instantaneously. And so that's really why we saw just a tremendous amount of best quarters ever.
Right.
And the businesses that became illegal, as you said, there's
or unsafe,
or unsafe, right? There's not much we could do.
Right.
Although I will tell you that there's one of our EOS implementers in Toronto. He had this brilliant idea that all these restaurants were closed, and what better time to start training and prepping for the next thing that happens that shuts them down. And so I think he got 17 new clients working with EOS tools while they were shut down, because they had the time. A restaurant, that's open till 2 a.m. had very little time to go sit with a full day session with their leadership team, but now they had it. So they took it, and they're prepping and training and defining all the right people. And so it turned out to be a great time for them to actually start the process of training, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? We don't know next time we're going to get punched in the mouth.
Right, when the next lockdown is going to happen or whatever. I think there's another quote when that the battle plans survive as long till the first contact with the enemy. Same idea.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, that's it's really, really telling what you're saying, and really it's interesting. Yeah, something like restaurants too, that what people do to succeed. Obviously people go to delivery or whatever, but there's limits. I mean, I guess what I wanted to really make sure we have time to focus on next is really the future, the future of EOS. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for people to hear from you, as you're newly in this role as visionary of EOS. So I guess, the truth is I don't really need to ask you, I think, about an introduction to what EOS is. We kind of covered that already. But can you describe, visionary is an interesting title. People are used to CEO or whatever. For those who are not already very familiar with EOS and the use of the term visionary, what does that mean, visionary? It's kind of a funny title, maybe feels self-aggrandized or something if you never heard it before. What is the idea of that? And
Sure.
also as it applies to, to your position at EOS Worldwide.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we actually feel that the visionary is a better descriptive term of what it is the CEO does.
Mm-hmm.
And that CEO is actually a status marker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you put it that way. But
yeah, I mean, it's perception. I mean, execution is right. I mean, it makes sense what you're saying, but
right. So we don't really believe in titles, and so we just want everything to be as basic as possible. And so the reason we call the visionary is because my role is big ideas, driving the culture of the organization, working on strategic partnerships, and being a little bit the public face and doing PR for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And really that's my role, as opposed to the integrator, who is Kelly Knight, which you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's all about executing the business plan, doing some research and development from the ideas that we work together on, and really just executing the business. And so visionary it's a little bit part of unique ability of the typical entrepreneur. The typical entrepreneur doesn't love management. They don't love the nitty-gritty of management. They're much better leader than they are a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a lot of ways, the accountability chart, the roles and responsibilities of the organization, is designed for the visionary almost to have one direct report, which is the integrator. And the integrator has the rest of the leadership team directly reporting to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so really my role is to make things up, and Kelly's role is to make it real. And the marketing and the rest of the ops and community for us and finances to make it reoccur every day. So that's kind of my summary. It's just about what it is that I do. I'm looking around corners. I'm going out in the world and seeing what the trends are and how we can position EOS as a business within that landscape.
Right. That is helpful. And I guess just, under your leadership and with you coming on board, obviously there may be things that you can't talk about, but, under your leadership, like what kind of new ideas or different ideas, directions, goals, priorities, can we maybe expect to see over the coming years and months?
Sure. So I think before I get into that, you think about EOS. We have a core focus, and really it's helping entrepreneurs live their ideal life. And that's what we're out to. And you can change entrepreneurs to people. We're really here to help people live their ideal life. And we're going to do that by training towards EOS mastery. So training towards EOS mastery, that's our niche. That's what we're here to do. And our 10-year target is 100,000 companies running on EOS. So as we think about
one second. I remember it being 10,000 companies running on EOS. So I know you mentioned earlier, I forgot this was before we started recording or not. Or no, I think it was while we were recording, you mentioned that it was almost 10,000. So I guess you're almost at the previous 10-year target, right?
That's right.
So you've already set the new 10-year target. I think that's news, at least for some people like me.
So a couple years ago, when our 3-year picture became our 10-year target, we moved it out another 10 years from that point, from 10,000 companies, which we will hit sometime next month, I'm gonna guess.
Wow.
And so we've already reset it to go to 100,000. And I joke, as most visionaries would, which I think we might be missing a zero. Now I'll be
Right.
clear, is that when we say 100,000 companies, it's 100,000 companies running EOS with a professional or certified
Right.
EOS implementer.
Right.
And so
because you're way beyond the 10,000. I mean, if it's for, Basecamp EOS implementers or self-implementers.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We believe we're already at the 100,000 mark if we count everyone who's using the tools in some capacity. So yeah, so when you think about training towards EOS, there's really 5 things that we're going to be focusing on over the next coming quarters and months. And number 1 is complete digital transformation. And a lot of that was brought on by COVID, where EOS, we are an in-person workshop company. We are whiteboard people. We joke that we're just a dumb person with a marker.
Right.
And we're very high touch human company. And so when a leadership team comes into a room, we're face to face, we're belly to belly.
Mm-hmm.
We have an implementer with a dry erase board and a marker, and we turn all our electronics off. Mm-hmm. And we write with our hand. And there's a lot of brain science to support writing with your hand is much more beneficial than typing and things like that. Mm-hmm. But COVID happened, and that threw the in-person workshop organization out the window. That no longer worked in most geographies. And so we quickly transitioned to virtual sessions using Zoom and all sorts of different technology tools to do that. And so since the beginning of COVID, about 2+ quarters, we've conducted over 8,800 full-day virtual sessions, mm-hmm. which is 2 times more than any of our competitors combined. So we just have way more experience than anyone in the world really doing full-day virtual sessions and facilitating mm-hmm. those, and things are different, right? So with our digital transformation, we're taking a look at digital leadership training manuals. That's the, how to handwrite, and how do you leverage the brain science of handwriting into a full-day Zoom meeting where people are all over the world. And so we're working on that. We have 2 software partners, Traction Tools and 90, mm-hmm. That are providing end user software. We will be producing our own as well. So there's some data analytics things that we're going to be able to provide the world. Our target market, we serve 92% of the global economy, our sweet spot and who we serve. Mm-hmm. And so there's just really some interesting insights that we can provide should we have the data. And so we're going to be going through a complete digital transformation end to end on where we're going as an organization. So the second thing is branding. Mm-hmm. And as we look at our brand in the marketplace, it can be confusing. There's some terms we use that are confusing. So you mentioned earlier, the certified EOS implementer optimized for growth. Little sidebar here is that I'm currently the head coach, but we're looking for a new one. And I'm currently a certified EOS implementer, and in the next few months I will not be, because I will not be working directly with any clients. So that aside, okay. My brand optimized for growth, for example, can be confusing in the marketplace. Or is it EOS? Is it optimized for growth? And so we want to just clean up the brand, give it a total refresh, the look and feel, eliminate the brand confusion if we can, or at least make it clear what's what.
Now, what do you mean? What do you mean by brand confusion? I mean, I understand with your company, does that mean that every EOS implementer should not be under their own company name anymore, or like? Or
no, we're just gonna make it clear what's what. So we're going to go through some rebranding and things like that to help make that a little bit clearer to the rest of the world.
Some of the integrator and implementer terminology, is that going to remain? Because a lot of people find that the similarity in sound a little bit confusing.
That's right. That's right. I would imagine it will not change, but you never know.
Okay.
So really, just from an outside brand perspective, really EOS has not done much marketing aside from selling a lot of books. And so we now have a very high-powered marketing leader in Pam Kaseki, and just the stuff that she's doing is top-notch. And it's just really things that EOS Worldwide has never really done. We never really created an intentional brand in the marketplace, and so we think that's going to clear up some confusion, make it easier for people to know the process and how to take action. So that's number two. The third thing is international, and we have two international locations, one in Australia we call APAC, which would be Australia and the surrounding Asia Pacific, and then we have Europe in London specifically. And so what we're going to be doing there is finding seed communities that are very entrepreneurial, they love EOS, and they want to take EOS and the tools and the content to their local markets. And so we'll be launching new seed locations as we go. And that takes me really to the fourth thing, which is really taking a look at how we can support our implementer community. And we are a very simple business. Most people, if they saw our business model, would be astonished at how simple it is. And so we require very little of our implementers for the return on investment that they get. And as a result, we give them very little in return, aside from what we call the 400K system, which is an implementer in 3 years should be running at 400,000 net profit with them and an assistant, which is pretty attractive. And so because we have that great value proposition, we don't really need to do much, and implementers love their freedom, so we give them that. However, as we grow, there's been an interesting thing where we're training towards EOS mastery, and so the community wants additional training around business development and facilitation and mind trash and the way the human psychology, the way people think, and so we're giving those types of tools and creating that content for our community out of that. So we're going to be supporting the community in that way. And then the last thing, the final thing that I'll be focusing on is the business model itself. And by that, I mean, we started in Gino's session room in Livonia, Michigan, with a handful of implementers. There was 40 implementers when I started, and there's 390 something now, I think, or 385, I don't know. And so we're scaling fast, and we just need to make sure that our business model is designed to support the continued 40% year-over-year growth that we experience. And so that's really where my focus is. And so that's digital transformation, branding, international, implementer support, and the business model. And so those are the 5 things that I'll be focusing in on.
I mean, what kind of things, we'll try to conclude in a second. What kind of things go into business model? I mean, does it mean like in the QCE and the monthly and that, or like what kind of stuff do you mean by business model?
So there's quite a few things that go into that, and some of it crosses over into international. So we have a 5-language plan. So we're launching the books in 5 languages. We, how do you onboard 32 new implementers every single quarter globally? And so what locations, what internal support do we need to have to teach QCEs? We have community leaders and builders now who are running our in-person quarterly collaborative exchanges. And We just need to have the accountability chart that will support that expansion, retain our profit margins, and all those different types of things that happen when you scale quickly.
Right.
The processes that we used even for coaching, for me as head coach in the past, the processes we had in place in the old days worked up to a certain point. Now they're broken, so we have to redo our processes, our proven processes, our core processes. Maybe not proven. Our proven process is not going to change. I misspoke there, but our core process. Yeah, so our core process will have to change for a lot of things just in order to support the growth, and so that's what I mean by business model.
Okay. Yeah, no, look, this is really, really interesting. I appreciate you being able to get into all those 5 things in those 5 areas and some detail on them for what to look forward to. I guess I was a couple years behind on the update of the 10-year target, but I appreciate that, and all the insights about what's working for those who are still working, and obviously people can hear that story that those stories you were telling about being tight and having right people, right seats, and of course using EOS tools to achieve all of that, and hopefully people can can be giving fresh interest in that to be able to achieve that kind of success even now. Maybe a little late, but it's they'll still be successful. People take action that's decisive. So appreciate all of that very, very much.
Yeah, and I would just, as we move to conclude here, is when we talk about our purpose, our cause, our passion, helping people live their ideal life. There's just a quick story I wanted to share, is that we say on the leadership team and the ownership group is really that EOS is probably going to be the most impactful thing any of us do in our entire lifetime. In a lot of ways, this is our legacy. This is my legacy. This is Gino's and Peyton's and all the Don Tinney, all the people who have helped EOS get to where it is. And I'm grateful to be part of helping it get to where we're going to go. And then much beyond that. So I was in a session in one of my clients' locations, and most of the time we never do this. We never have full day sessions in a client's location because it's distracting and all the different reasons why we would never do that. And it just happened to work out that I needed to be there, and so we started really early and so I was walking to the restroom, and a gentleman stopped me, and he just said, "Hey, are you that EOS guy?" Like, yep, that's me. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. And he's not on a leadership team. Never met him before. And he says, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you because for the very first time in 26 years of being at this company, I look forward to coming to work. And it's because of you
26 years.
and EOS. 26 years of hating his job
Oh.
to looking forward to coming to work every day. He's like, we have a clear vision. We know where we're going. The confusion is gone. I come to work and I know what I need to work on and do. We have a crystal clear idea of who's performing and who's not. And no longer am I really focusing in on the people who are surrounded by me with the wrong culture, and it's no longer tolerated. And so I just wanted to thank you because for the very first time in my life, I look forward to coming to work after 26 years. Because of EOS and the work that you did with the leadership team and the work that they did, then rolling those tools out. So when I say that this is going to be the biggest impact that we will have in our lives, I really think that's true. And it will be just amplified by digital, be amplified by those 5 things that I talked about. And so, there you have it.
Yeah, no, it's a powerful anecdote, and I appreciate you concluding with that. And I definitely encourage people to go to eosworldwide.com and learn more about EOS. Of course, Mark O'Donnell and all the great team there, where you can find an EOS implementer. Obviously, people can reach out to me through my website, wolfsedgeconsulting.com as well for questions, but definitely check out eosworldwide.com. And Mark, just really, really appreciate you making the time today and, sharing all of this. And I hope, hope we could talk again. Look forward to staying in touch, but thank you for coming on.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
My pleasure. And we'll see everybody else on the other side. Thanks.
You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.